Lesson 6. The Fall. When God created Adam and Eve, He did something very wonderful to their souls. He gave them the divine gifts of mind and heart that made them like Him. He clothed their souls with sanctifying grace, and they became holy and pleasing in His sight, and received the right to be happy with Him for all eternity in heaven. Adam and Eve were very happy together in paradise. Everything around them was beautiful. There was plenty of food of every kind. The climate was neither too hot nor too cold. There was a beautiful river that flowed through the middle of the garden, and Adam and Eve loved to walk by its side and to talk with God. God told Adam and Eve that they and their children would always be happy if they would love Him with all their hearts and obey Him. They would never die. They would simply finally be taken up into heaven. Now, Satan envied Adam and Eve. He saw how happy they were in paradise and how much God loved them, and he made up his mind to try and lead them away from God. They would have something he could never have. They could get into heaven, and that made him very angry. One day, he appeared to Eve in the form of a serpent, which at that time was one of the most beautiful animals in paradise. He spoke to Eve and asked her, "Why has God commanded thee not to eat of every tree in the garden?" "We do eat of the fruit of all the trees in paradise," Eve answered, "except the one tree in the middle of the garden. God told us that if we touch it, we shall die." "No, you shall not die," said the serpent. "But God knows that if you eat the fruit of that tree, your eyes will be opened, and you shall be as gods." Your eyes will be opened, and you will be as gods. When Eve heard these words, she forgot how happy she had been in paradise and how good God had been to her. The fruit of the tree was beautiful. She could not forget what the serpent had told her. She took some fruit from the tree and ate it, and she brought some to Adam, and she told him the strange story of the serpent, and he too ate of the fruit. They had no sooner eaten of this forbidden fruit when they knew they had done a very wicked thing. They were ashamed, and they were frightened, and they tried to hide themselves from the sight of God. But nothing can be hidden from God. "Why hast thou eaten the fruit whereof I commanded you should not eat?" God asked Adam. Adam answered, "The woman whom you gave me as my companion gave me of the tree, and I did eat." Then God said to Eve, "Why hast thou done this?" And Eve answered, "The serpent deceived me, and I did eat." Then God said to the serpent, "Because thou hast done this thing, you are cursed among all the beasts of the earth. You shall go upon your breast, and shall eat the earth, and all the days of thy life. I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed, and she will crush your head." To Eve God said, "I will multiply thy sorrows and thy conceptions. In sorrow shalt thou bring forth children, and thou shalt be under thy husband's power, and he will have dominion over thee." To Adam God said, "Because you have listened to the voice of the woman, and hast eaten of the tree that I commanded that you should not eat, cursed is the earth in thy work. Thorns and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and in the sweat of thy face thou shalt earn thy bread, till you return to the earth out of which thou hast been taken. For dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return." What does all this mean? So the serpent now would have to crawl along the ground and eat dirt. Eve would give birth to her children in great pain, and would now have to obey her husband in all things. Adam would now have to labor hard to make food grow from the earth. No longer would things just sprout up at his bidding. Finally, both Adam and Eve would have to die. When it was time for them to leave the earth, they would no longer be assumed body and soul into heaven. Their body would die and rot in the earth. Their soul would go to judgment because sin had entered the world, and they now would have to account to God for all of their sins. If they died with sin on their souls, they would go to hell. If they remained obedient to God, they would not go to hell, but neither could they enter heaven, for the gates of heaven were closed because of their sin. God had been offended by man. Man would need to make reparation fitting to God. Only a God-man could do this. God held out hope of such a Redeemer when he told the serpent, "I will put enmity between thee and the woman, between thy seed and her seed, and she will crush thy head." He wasn't speaking to the serpent. He was speaking to the devil that had prompted this tempt. The woman God speaks of here is not Eve, but the mother of the Redeemer, Mary. Her seed or child is Christ. The seed or children of the devil are the followers, both demon and human. God also foretells that Mary and her child will win over Satan, will win in the battle with Satan and crush his head. Because heaven is closed, even to the good, they must wait in a place called limbo until Christ would come to open the gates. This place of waiting is probably much like the Garden of Eden was. They no longer suffer. They're happy, but they can't see God face to face. The Jewish people also refer to this place as the bosom of Abraham, or resting in Abraham's arms. God clothed Adam and Eve with garments of skins and cast them out of the garden of paradise. And he stationed cherubim with a flaming sword to guard it, so that they could never return. Adam and Eve had believed the devil when he told them that if they ate the forbidden fruit, they would become as gods. They had trusted Lucifer and disobeyed God. They had committed a great sin. God punished them and closed heaven against them. They were no longer happy. Their minds were disturbed and their wills were weakened. It became hard for them to know what was true and to do what was right. Their children too, and their children's children, until the end of the world, would have to suffer for this sin. We call their sin the original sin. Every child comes into the world with this sin on their souls. The Blessed Virgin Mary is the only human being who was ever preserved from this sin. The devil did what he so often does. He tells only part of the truth. In this way, we believe him. He told Eve her eyes would be open. Until then, Eve knew only about good things. Now her eyes were open, and she knew about evil as well. He lied when he told her that she would be like God. The truth was that without sanctifying grace, she was not like God at all. She had lost that part of herself that resembled him. Be careful of the devil. He always does this. He mixes truth with falsehood. The truth makes us think that it's right, but we should be careful. He never tells the complete truth, and he always does it for our detriment, to hurt us, because he hates us.